weather today. I was fortunately able to find a place to fly where it was actually sunny, and I noticed the connection's kind of different today, where for some reason normally I get 20 satellite signals, which is good, but today I'm getting 30. What's for that, huh? Well, that in mind, what's going on today? Lots to do with the weather actually, and this is kind of interesting. Remember all those stories in the US where it seemed like officials were telling people not to fly their drones or aircraft to help people, for example, potentially, just because they say it's going to block emergency services even if there's no one there? Well, how about this one? I guess because of all the outrage, people like the FAA had to issue like these statements, I suppose, because the trust from the public is not very high at the moment. This one here from the FAA first says, operating near hurricane recovery efforts. So what are the official rules per se when it comes to the airspace and these types of situations? It says here, recovery efforts in the aftermath of a hurricane can be immense and require close coordination at both the federal and the state levels. The airspace around the recovery efforts have high levels of aviation activity, including small airplanes, helicopters, and drones. The FAA's goal at all times is to ensure safety and help facilitate this critical work. And it seems like they felt the need to explicitly say this. It says, TFRs do not ban aircraft, including drones, from providing disaster relief. At the request of local authorities or law enforcement, the Federal Aviation Administration can issue temporary flight restrictions to ensure safety for aircraft conducting hurricane rescue and recovery activities. These TFRs do not ban aircraft, including drones, from providing disaster relief and recovery assistance. State and local authorities may also enact local restrictions. Relief operations, including civilian and volunteer operations, may assess the restricted airspace if they are coordinated with emergency responders. And they mentioned how the situation is constantly changing, so you need to keep updated in terms of what the restrictions are. And it's kind of interesting in this case because if they're releasing this as a way to tone down the public outrage of people wanting to use, let's just say, their drones or personal aircraft to help people, this doesn't really say anything in terms of, no, we allow people to do it. Like, we're not blocking them, because with this temporary flight restriction, kind of like what they say, you have to essentially coordinate with the emergency responders and so forth, because it is a blanket ban per se in general if you're not, quote, authorized. But in a situation that is in a dire emergency for people, there's no one there, this does not say, for example, hey, you're allowed to fly. It says, no, you have to get permission still, correct? So that's kind of interesting in that case. I don't think this basically eases up that tension that people have. It says, an ACA does not restrict airspace, but provides pilots important guidance. Additionally, at the request of a state government, the FAA will issue an airspace coordination area, which is an advisory for very specific circumstances, a heads up about an unusual situation and or congestion that pilots should be aware of. An ACA does not restrict airspace, but provides pilots important guidance. A local airport may implement prior permission required to manage air traffic, ensure safety, and control access to their airports. These airports are not closed, however. Pilots and operators must get permission to have full use of the runway or airport facility. Yeah, it's kind of interesting in that regards, and it's a great example too. I've often mentioned in terms of things like over-the-top regulations where they don't even focus on safety in many cases. It's more about control, unfortunately, in a lot of cases for commercial reasons. And I even said before, you have to resonate with the average people, and they do it emotionally. You can come up with all the facts you want, wear a suit and tie or whatever, trying to reason with people, but it's situations like this when they see it with their own eyes, like, hey, what is going on? And as you can see, it gets a reaction out of, let's just say, the quote officials, when people realize there's something wrong with this. People need to do this, in my opinion, raise more awareness in these ways. And again, the reason for the outrage is because apparently there were a lot of people providing aid with their own personal drones, or let's just say a helicopter, but they're being denied for whatever reason. And this is actually making people even more upset in relations, let's just say restrictions and airspaces and all that. Apparently there was this helicopter flying around, I guess, the disaster areas, and there were people below with all these supplies to help out. And for some reason, I don't know what they were doing with this helicopter, they were flying so low where people were getting blown away, the supplies and all that. So you can imagine in this case, people are saying, what are you doing? Are you just trying to sabotage everyone here? Just from reading some of the comments from some helicopter pilots, for example, even they're wondering, what in the world is this? So whose helicopter was this? Apparently, there was this post by the NC National Guard. It says, the North Carolina National Guard is aware of an incident involving a NCNG UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter during a delivery of generators at the request of a local civilian organization to power their distribution outpost in western North Carolina. So what exactly happened as well? It says, while attempting to land, rotor wash caused items to blow away from the local distribution setup by a group of civilians in the area. The crew immediately identified the situation, aborted the landing for safety reasons, and departed the area. This incident is currently under investigation and the crew has been grounded until the investigation is complete. The NCNG is working with the identified local civilian organization to assess the level of damage caused by the rotor wash. Yeah, you're so worried about little drones in general. How about in this case? Are people going to say, okay, well, that's fine, it's a big helicopter, they're just used to it. But again, you could be using things, for example, like a civilian drone in those cases where if there's no one else there, I don't see why they're not allowed per se to use it. There's too much red tape from the government getting in the way, I would say, in those situations anyways. And then here, when you have officially sanctioned flights and all that, that's extremely dangerous, correct? This is crazy, like this whole situation. All right, see you guys later.